Collective. It's Ron over here at Becoming Enlightened Together, and we're here for yet another reading. We're going to be looking at the runes. If I get another chance a little bit later on this afternoon, I'll probably, or actually it's getting closer to evening now, I'll go ahead and look at a tarot reading. Okay? I can't make any promises. I have so many other things going on, so I just try to slip this in whenever I possibly can. But the reading that we got for the runes so far, the energy is very explicit in terms of what's going on again within the world of the karmic, in our lives. The karmic could be plural or singular depending on your situation, but and I know a lot of people would prefer to hear what's going on with them personally. And in a way, this is still a very personal reading because these are people that are basically within your energetic sphere of influence, so they're people you know, and you may not know them to be karmic yet. Some of us, these things have yet to be revealed. Others of us are already very much aware and familiar with who the karmics in our life are. Those who have been, like I said, working diligently in the shadows and so on and so forth. So just take it with a grain of salt and use it for your own advantage. I mean, knowledge, they say, is power, but it's not true. It's not knowledge. It's, knowledge leads to wisdom, and wisdom itself is power. It's what you do with that knowledge that, either gives or, I guess you would say, take away your power in this situation. So use it in a, in a wise manner. That's what I'm saying. Now, the energy for the week is Yara in the upright. And, gosh, I don't know why it just doesn't come in very clearly. Can you see it? I guess it would help if I had it facing the right direction. I'm sorry, you guys. These pink stones are a lot harder for me to see specifically, especially since it's like gold, on pink. So sometimes, that color perception throws things off a little bit. I thought that's what I was seeing in the camera. Anyway, I digress. So what does Yara actually stand for? In the upright, it talks about cycles, basically. It talks about, harvest time. Sometimes in the winter we plant our seeds, and in the spring we actually harvest, so on. So cycles, cycles in terms of the different seasons, the weather, the moon cycles, the solar cycles, and so on and so forth. And going, with the flow of those cycles instead of fighting against them. But it also talks about everything changing in its own time. You can't force it, okay? It talks about the rewards, peace, commitment. It talks about a time where all of these things are coming together in our lives, and I'm talking about specifically the collective in general right now. This is our energy for this time of change, where the cycle is changing for all of us. Everything is being flip-flopped. Those who have been in control and enjoying, their status, their wealth, and all that kind of thing, basically and largely at the expense of many other people. They didn't get it by hard work and discipline and things of that nature. They got it through chicanery, basically, for lack of a better way of putting it in a single word. Now, you've been working very hard and very diligently and having to go over hurdle after hurdle after hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. And now we're finally at the point where things are shifting. So our energy is reflected in this. It talks about a time where everything that we've done previous to this is now manifesting. In other words, our rewards are being, finally delivered to us. So, now, what we're seeing as far as the rest of the energy, it's all once again in the reverse. So that tells me now that's your energy at the end of this cycle that's coming up. The energy, on the other hand, for those in Karmicville, quite the opposite. Okay? In fact, it's the polar opposite. So, Haglas in the reverse. Haglas is the past energy, the one that we pulled on Sunday for today, which is Thursday, the 1st of the year 2026. Happy New Year's, by the way. So we're talking about something that reflects disruptive forces, forces of nature, disasters, catastrophes, uh, stagnation, loss of power, pain, loss, suffering, hardship, crisis, sickness. And we're seeing that particular aspect of this, as well as the stagnation for the karmics in particular. And I only use that word because I don't have another singular word that I can utilize that describes those who are not part of the collective, who have done all their work, their shadow work, and everything else up to this point. Okay? So those who are not part of that particular genre, niche, clique, whatever you want to call it, um, I'm calling karmic, just to put everything into a nice, easy box, so to speak. Now, what we have as far as our present energy is just equally as, disastrous in a sense. It is Sowilo, and Sowilo also in the reverse. Now, Sowilo in the reverse is not what we typically see when we're talking about the collective and the upright, where it's very, very powerful room. It talks in this particular case in the reverse as somebody who's basically very self-centered, perhaps very narcissistic. Somebody with false goals, false success, false hopes, somebody who gives and takes bad counsel, not clearly capable of thinking for themselves, although they may try to pretend otherwise. They're gullible. Somebody has a loss of true goals. What is their goals? They don't really have any. They just want to, gather around them whatever they can get, that kind of a thing. They want to simply consume. They want to have. They're under the belief that he who has the most toys in the end wins kind of, philosophy. So they are also experiencing destruction, retribution, justice. Again, this is the end of a cycle, so justice is being served. So it talks also about their vanity being brought down. Their egos are being checked right now. And very specifically, it talks about the wrath of God, the universe, source, the Most High, perhaps your higher self. Whatever the case may be, they are under judgment, okay? Now, what we're seeing as far as obstacles and challenges for today, we've got Ingwas. Now, this is the god Freyr's rune, but this too is also in the reverse. So, again, it talks about the marking of endings, talks about milestones, completions of something, limits, talks about, coming full circle in something. Talks about, they may have started off as being very positive and well-rounded individuals. They got themselves involved with cliques and other people, and because they haven't done their own shadow work, they were easily led astray, and they gave into many of their own, desires and everything else, which they were left unchecked, and they just consumed them, basically. And that's what this rune speaks of. Because ordinarily, Ingwas talks about, like sexuality and things in a positive light. Well, this is exactly the opposite. So, it talks about hopelessness yet again, and also blindness. Now, as far as our help and advice goes, we have another very powerful rune, but it too is in the reverse, and this is Algis. Now, Algis in the reverse is basically somebody who's being used by others. So perhaps they surrounded themselves with what they thought were their friends, but they're nothing more than people that they run around town with and get into trouble with, party with, and things like that, but they don't have their best interests at heart. And that's what this really speaks of. Being misled, misleading others, being vulnerable to, deception, things of that nature. It talks about hidden dangers, consumption by higher forces. And you can say, the things that we would classify as being demonic, archonic, jinn-like type of energies. Very dark, very low vibrational. It talks about a loss of divine link. They have lost their link with the divine. Now, is it possible to get it back? Sure, but it's going to take as much effort to do that as it did to lose it. They put everything into their, consumption of, this materialistic world, and they've pretty much just cast aside everything dealing with, if you will, the light. In fact, maybe even denying the light or pledging themselves over to the darkness in some cases, literally. So, again, it talks about taboos. It talks about warnings, turning away. It talks about that which repels. So we're talking very, very low vibrational, very dark energy that these people are basically being consumed by. And it's the energy they themselves have, just like a pig rolling around in the mud and everything else, they were rolling around in their own spiritual filth, so to speak. Now, the future outcome, unfortunately for them, is Urus in the reverse. And again, this talks about sickness, illness, possibly worse. Okay? It talks about low energy, missed opportunities, weakness, obsession. It talks about misdirected forces, domination by others yet again, lustfulness, inconsistencies, ignorance, brutality and violence, and rashness and callousness. So all in all, that now that we're coming upon this end of this cycle and everything else, we can see a very huge contrast between those who are stepping basically into their success, being crowned, if you will, and those who have lost their crown and are going to be losing far more from the materialistic standpoint as well in the time. So pray for them, collective, if that is something that you do. At the very least, try not to be angry with them and try not to look down upon them, for we've all been at these points at some point in our journey. We had to learn these lessons as well. They just haven't gotten to the point of maturity yet where they see the necessity of going through that and doing the work, to overcome these things. So don't look down upon them. If you can, pray for them. Okay. Well, that's all I really have for today. Short and sweet, and I just needed to get this out there, before something else comes up and I get sidetracked, which for me is not that hard sometimes. Anyways, I wish you all, of course, victory as always, and very, very far into the future. I'll see you all in Valhalla. Take care.